I'm joined by Sarah Huckabee Sanders, former White House press secretary, now back home in Arkansas. We're so excited to have you here today and just get to chat a little bit about your life back home in Arkansas. Let's just start with what you've been up to since you've come back home to Arkansas.
Well, spending a lot of time with my family, which has been amazing after 2.5 years in the White House and another year on the campaign. You're kind of at a 24/7, 365 day a year, all-consuming job. So our family has taken a lot of time to spend together over the last year, loving being back home in Arkansas with so many friends and extended family. So it's been wonderful. Also have a new book that came out just a little over a month ago, and have been working on it quite a bit. I'm a Fox News contributor, so a lot of things that keep me busy, but spending and enjoying a lot more time at home has been really nice.
And then with the pandemic, we were all kind of forced to spend
forced to spend a lot more time than we even planned for. In some ways, that was very refreshing, at least for our family. Certainly, we had a lot of moments, like every family, where you're thinking, please let school start back soon. I have 3 kids that are 8, 7, and 5, so we were glad when Little Rock schools opened back up, but certainly understood a lot of the difficulties of being home. But there were a lot of really incredible moments, too, during that time that our family got to spend together, but also we embarked, my husband and I started a nonprofit called the Arkansas 30-Day Fund, where we were able to help over 100 Arkansas small businesses keep their doors open, keep their employees, and that was really an incredible experience for us to get to do and to get to be part of our community and helping in that way when so many people were struggling.
You know, so many people during this pandemic have picked up, you know, a hobby or a skill. Mine was cooking. Some people Netflix all day long. You wrote this book and it came out just about a month ago, right? So what has that been like, the thought process going into this book and then seeing it come to fruition?
It's really an amazing process. You don't realize until you're in the thick of it just how much work goes into writing a book. But in many ways it was very therapeutic. I got to go back and relive some of the greatest moments and be reflective on some of the difficult ones. So I actually really enjoyed the process of writing the book. I'm really proud of how it turned out, and I think that people who read it get a better insight into who I am. I hope that they laugh a little, cry a little, and are certainly inspired why we live in the greatest country we do and are thankful that we get to be Americans.
Do you focus a lot on your time in the White House in this book? Because a lot of people, you know, want to know. You had an inside look at everything going on and were one of the faces that people turn to. So do you talk a lot about that in the book?
I do. There's a significant amount of coverage on my time at the White House, but also about growing up in Arkansas and my family and being part of a political family here in the state. There's a lot of that kind of back and forth. I graduated from Central High, and I talk about my experience there and how that shaped me as I moved forward into the next stages of my life. But one of the other important parts for me was, and I spent an entire chapter talking about it, was being a working mom and how we find that balance. I think so many women, we put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect, and we're constantly looking at the highlight reels of everybody's life on social media, and we forget that every mom that is working and trying to keep up with their kids is struggling with different things. And so I was, I think, very open about my own experiences, some of the challenges with that, and some of the things that we found that worked in our family too. And that was an important part for me to cover in the book as well.
You've mentioned before that being a mom helped you to be a better press secretary, and vice versa. Being a press secretary helped you be a better mom. What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't think the press always appreciated when I said that being a mom, certainly to preschool age children, helped me handle them better. But I got really used to answering the same question over and over again, saying no a lot, and having a lot of patience. Those are all things that you get much better at being a parent, and certainly something that prepared me for the everyday briefing with the press. Thankfully, sometimes my kids actually behaved better than some of the press corps in that room. But it also, for me, being a mom, I think made me better in a lot of ways, because it reminded me of why I was willing to do that job. job. There were some incredible moments, some of the most, I think, historic moments in the Trump presidency, and I got to be there and be on the front row and be an active participant in the president negotiating deals, whether he was sitting across the table from Kim Jong-un or Prime Minister Abe of Japan. Being part of that was remarkable, but also remembering why I was willing to go through the really difficult days, and where our family was under relentless attack, was knowing that I wanted to do everything possible to make sure that my kids have the best future, the best America, the best Arkansas that they can. And that's why it's important for us to be involved. And it's why our family was willing to make that sacrifice. And having 3 kids in my face all day, every day was such a good reminder of that.
I'm just going to take a stab in the dark and say you have to have really thick skin to be in that position.
Well, I think not only thick skin, but I think more importantly is knowing who you are before you ever step foot in that room. I never went in there looking for the New York Times or CNN or the Washington Post or anybody else to define me. As a person of faith, I already knew who I was. And I knew I had a creator who had made me for a specific purpose. And my goal was to go in every single day, no matter how hard the questions were or how angry the crowd was to try to deliver a message and try to speak to the American people on behalf of the president. And having that definition before I got there made all the difference in the world and gave me the confidence to do my job.
Now, there had to be, you even mentioned, some difficult days, some low days. Do you remember one in particular? I mean, everybody has those in life, and I think people appreciate the honesty of saying, oh, it looks on TV, I can handle this, I've got this, but there's got to be some times where it is tough.
Yeah, there were a lot of days, certainly the moments where I think a lot of us who went into the administration were prepared for our policies or the president's agenda to be attacked, but not necessarily prepared for us to personally be attacked. And so that was something that was, I think, hard not just for me, but also for my family. I was the first White House press secretary in the history of our country to need Secret Service protection. And knowing that the job I was doing every day made it harder for me to protect my family is a difficult thing to process. And so certainly there were moments like that, personally, that were very hard. Probably the most challenging and difficult day I ever had in the White House was the day of the Las Vegas shooting. I was the very first person to come out and speak on behalf of the administration and speak to a country that was really hurting and that was grieving and looking for answers. Knowing that there were no words I could offer that could bring comfort to those families or fix the horrific tragedy that had happened, but knowing that there was a responsibility to offer something to the American people was something that weighed on me a lot, and certainly was one of the more difficult moments I ever had in that job.
Yeah, that is a hefty responsibility. People are at the edge of their seats listening to your every word, and that can change everything. I mean, it can be misconstrued. It can be, just people hear it, and at a moment, it's all over the news. So you have to be very careful in the words that you choose, and that, I imagine, can be difficult.
Now, every day you're essentially walking a tightrope with no net. You know that there are a room full of people that are hoping you'll make a mistake, and they're trying to push you to make those mistakes most of the time. And so trying to find that balance of providing information to the American people and to the people in the room without creating and becoming the story, and actually just giving information that's helpful to the story can be a really difficult challenge. But I'm proud of the work that I did in the White House. I'm proud of the job that the president's done and that I got to play a role in helping during that 2.5 years I was there.
And you kind of changed things up a little bit where there were no press briefings. I think it was for almost 3 months. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That was something very different, and it was heavily criticized by some people. What went into that decision that you made?
Well, the president felt like the room had kind of gotten out of control and that people were no longer using the briefing room to get accurate information, but using it for gotcha moments and trying to create viral moments so that the reporters could become somebody versus getting information to the American public. He thought it became so much of a distraction. He hated the way the press treated primarily me, but also other people that I brought into the room to speak on behalf of the administration. and he decided that it was not the best platform for us to use to get information out. One of the things a lot of people don't know is that they think the press secretary's only interaction with the press is in that room. But in reality, thousands of reporters have your direct cell phone number, your email. My phone would start ringing and going off starting very early, sometimes 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, from all the morning show producers wanting information as they started their day, and that didn't end until well after midnight. It's also the only office in the West Wing that the press has access to at all times to come up and ask questions of the press secretary as well as of the staff. And so there's a lot of different interaction that takes place between the administration and the press that isn't seen on camera. And so there were a lot of other ways for us to get information out, have back and forth exchanges with the press that were outside of the briefing room that were a bit more productive.
And you had a moment, I remember, it was in Virginia, right? You were at that restaurant and you were asked to leave. And you complied, from what I understand. One, I want to know what that was like in that moment, just being a human. And then two, now that you're back in Arkansas, do you feel so much more comforted being home and not having those experiences? Or maybe you've had, I'm not sure.
No, being back home in Arkansas has been amazing. It's one of the reasons that it was important for us. We wanted our kids to be raised here in Arkansas. This is home. This is where our heart is, our life is here. And so we were, very happy to get back here after our time in DC. Those moments were difficult, and certainly there were a lot of moments like that were very challenging. For me personally, but at the end of the day, again, we were proud of the work that we were doing. We were happy to make the sacrifice as a family to fight for the America that we love and make sure we were doing everything we could to help protect our freedoms and protect our values and our way of life in this country. And so if it meant me getting kicked out of a restaurant while it wasn't fun, I certainly think standing up for what is right and continuing to be bold about what we believe in is certainly worth going through that process. Thankfully, we have not had any experiences like that in Arkansas. In fact, quite the opposite. People could not be more encouraging and more supportive and just more friendly. Even sometimes those people that may disagree with us have been very nice since we've been back home.
It's a Southern thing.
Yeah.
I've learned that. Definitely a Southern thing. Let's talk to right now. We are, election is upon us, and this is an unreal election because we are in the middle of a pandemic, and this is so unprecedented. What does a Trump win look for you? And what does a Biden win look like for you?
Well, I don't look at it as much for me as more what it means for the country. And I think it could not be two more different paths for America. I think under President Trump, we continue down a path of prosperity and safety and security. And I think if we go the direction of a President Biden, we're looking at a push much further to the left and on the road to socialism. That's not something I want to see for America. It's one of the reasons I'm such an outspoken supporter of the president, because I want to continue to have the type of economic growth that we've had, continue to have tax cuts, continue to have the remaking of the judiciary, the rebuilding of our military that we've seen under this president. I want those things to continue. I think that this is the most consequential election of our lifetime, and we have two candidates that couldn't be more different and have more different viewpoints. The choice for America, to me, is extremely clear, and I want us to continue to fight for the America that the president has been fighting for and really been, I think, improving and building on over the last 4 years.
What do you think leadership looks like for you? 2021, let's get out of this year and look beyond. I think things are going to be different. We are in this pandemic and leadership is changing or will change. What do you think it looks like in 2021 and beyond?
Well, I think people are paying a lot more attention to who their leaders are on every level. Certainly, I think there's always been an intense focus on the presidency and on Congress, but I think people are paying a lot closer attention to who's on their school board, who their mayor is, who their governor is, and I'm very happy about that because we need people focused on making sure they're electing leaders that reflect their values. And I think we have a lot of people that are waking up to that. Certainly after this pandemic, when a lot of decisions are being made very close to home, people are paying closer attention. I think we'll be a lot more involved in those races moving forward.
And speaking of closer to home, there's so much talk about the negative, the coronavirus, the pandemic, everything that's going on. What do you see that's positive for Arkansas going forward, a future for Arkansas?
Well, I'm obviously biased, but I think Arkansas is such an underestimated state. There's so much potential here. I love this state. It's one of the reasons we wanted to get back home so quickly. One thing that I'm really excited about, our football team is looking amazing.
You're a huge Hogs
That
fan.
is something that I think all Arkansans, whether you're Republican, Democrat, rich or poor, no matter, can be excited that our football team is winning games and doing some great things. I couldn't be more excited about our coach and what's happening out there. So I'm hopeful that that can be one of those things that brings people together. I think after we come out of the pandemic, one of the things that I saw through the Arkansas 30-Day Fund, the nonprofit that my husband and I started to help small businesses across the state, is we have a community that loves each other. We have a community that is willing to help each other out in those difficult moments. It's one of the things that I love about this state is people are so willing to step up and help people in a time of need. We haven't lost that. It is, I think, the heart of who Arkansas is. I got to see that a lot during that nonprofit process. And we helped a lot of people that probably didn't think like us politically and probably wouldn't associate with us in any other way other than they wanted to help out and make sure that the small businesses that in many cases are the backbones of our community know that they're supported, know that people want them to keep their doors open. Getting to work with people in an effort like that, I think, was such a tremendous reminder of who Arkansas is at its heart and why we're such a great state.
And I can't have you here and not ask. I know that you've said in the past that you're going to wait until after the election. Have you made a decision on when or if you're going to run for governor?
Right now my focus is on 2020, and that's where I think it should be. Like I said, this is one of the most consequential elections that we've ever had in my lifetime. I think all Republicans, all conservatives need to be pouring all of their efforts and all of their resources into this election cycle. We have so much time for 2022. I'll be happy to make an announcement about that decision when I come to it. But right now, my focus is on making sure we get the president reelected. I'd love to see the Republicans keep the Senate. I'd also love to see Republicans take back the House and never utter the word Speaker Pelosi again. So my focus is on that. Where I think everybody in the state's focus needs to be on is 2020. And after that, we'll have a lot of time for 2022. I'm very serious about a run for the governor's office during that time, and we'll make a decision sometime after this election.
We have really good people to lean on during that time when you're making that decision. The president has said you would be terrific at it. You know, you have your dad, who everyone knows was governor of Arkansas. So those are great people, I imagine, to lean on and seek advice from.
Certainly not a bad list of supporters to start with. And we've had a lot of encouragement as we've been out and about in Arkansas from so many people. And again, at the end of the day, I love this state and I want to see what is best for us to continue moving forward. And if I feel like I'm the person that can help do that and feel like that's the plan that God has for me and my family, then we'll make that decision. But no matter what, we will always be committed to helping Arkansas and serving in some capacity.
And is there anything else before we end, anything else that you want people to know about you? You're going to be speaking to Arkansans, speaking to people. You're not, doing a press briefing. You're not on Fox News. You're here in Central Arkansas. Is there anything you want people to know about you, Sarah?
I think that, one of the pieces of advice that my dad gave me, I don't even know how young I was, but certainly something he told me from a very young age and repeated many times over was to always be myself. And one of the things that I frankly am very proud of is to be an Arkansan. And that's a large part of who I am. And I think all Arkansans should be proud of that. There's so many times where I think people try to push our state down and maybe say we're not as good or as competitive as others. But be proud of who you are. Be proud that you're from this state. And I think that nothing could be truer, no matter what capacity you're in, whether it's the White House or your house. Be proud of who you are and who God created you to be.
Thank you so much for being here today and joining us. We wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much for having me.